Hey there, James from Dimensional Insight here. I'm currently trying to figure out how to get stamps to work. What are the important components and attributes? As you can tell, it's clearly not going very well. I really hope this next video will help.
In this demonstration, you'll learn about the stamp component grammar for our four most frequently used components: the text, indicator, image, and chart components. The component block of a stamp template file contains specifications for each component or portlet in a stamp. The components you can add to a stamp include the text, indicator, image, chart, matrix, measures, quick view, analysis, and HTML components. In this video, we'll focus on the four most commonly used components, which are the text, indicator, image, and chart components. Remember that all stamps are coded within Workbench and then added to one or more DivePort pages, either by a DivePort administrator or, if the stamp is a self-service stamp, by the end user. Let's start with the text component. The text component can be used for adding labels and other text to your stamp. In the code block for the text component, you can specify the actual text that will appear on the stamp, the position of the text in the stamp, the style of the text, which includes the text font and size, as well as styles such as bold and italic, the size of the area the text will occupy, and the click action for the text. Sometimes you may want the text to show the name of the measure for which the stamp is chosen. Here, for example, we have a stamp labeled Total Admissions. When the user chooses the same stamp for the measure Total Discharges, the label on the stamp changes accordingly. To generate text that displays the name of a measure, you use the built-in macro measure1. If the stamp shows information on multiple measures, the number identifies the measure to which the neighboring attributes will apply. Similarly, you can generate text that identifies a dimension with the built-in macro dimension1. Let's look more closely at the code that generated this particular stamp, our YTD year-to-date chart stamp. Here we have the text component that creates the text YTD, the label for our total admissions number. The style attribute specifies that the text will use the font Segoe UI and will be small, bold, and orange. And here we have the text component that displays the name of the measure. Because we don't know which measure the DivePort administrator will choose for this stamp when they add the stamp to a page, we've used the built-in macro measure1 to specify the text for this text component. In this particular case, the DivePort administrator chose the measure Total Admissions for the stamp, so the macro causes the text Total Admissions to appear on the stamp. Next, we'll take a look at the indicator component. Indicators provide a visual or text-based representation of data values. A text-based indicator shows the number value for the measure, while a visual indicator displays an icon to show the measure value. Visual indicators include alert, slider, gauge, circular gauge, left gauge, right gauge, fill gauge, and many more. In the code block for an indicator, you'll set the indicator type, for example, text, alert, or gauge, the position of the indicator in the stamp, the size of the indicator, the value of the indicator, and if you choose, a style, click action, and threshold. There are many other optional attributes you can use to configure an indicator. For example, if you use an alert indicator, you can set the shape of that indicator to a circle, triangle, or square. For more information on optional attributes for indicators, see the online help. Here's our YTD year-to-date chart stamp, which includes a total of 5 indicators, 4 text indicators, and 1 alert indicator. For these three indicators, we've specified click actions that launch the default analysis window. For now, however, we'll focus on the alert indicator and the text indicator next to it. This is the section of code in the stamp file that generates the alert indicator and governs its appearance. Here we've set the indicator type to alert, the position of the indicator, and the size of the indicator. For the value, we've set up a basic time series for our measure, with a range of year to date and a variation of CVP/PCT, which determines the percent difference between the current year-to-date value and the previous year-to-date value. For the shape of the indicator, we've specified triangle, and here we've specified our threshold values and our indicator colors, which together determine the color of the triangle. If the number returned by the value attribute and its sub-attributes is below the threshold value -5, the triangle is displayed in red. If the number returned is between -5 and 5, the triangle is displayed in gray. And finally, if the number returned is greater than 5, the triangle is displayed in green. Now let's look at the code for the text indicator. We've set the indicator type to text. We've set the position, size, and style of the text, and we've used the same settings for the value, thresholds, and colors that we used for the alert indicator. But because this is a text indicator, we see the difference between the current year-to-date value of the measure and the previous year-to-date value, represented as a gray number, -4%, instead of as a gray triangle. Now let's look at the image component. The image component allows you to add an image to the stamp. In the code block for an image, you specify the location of the image file and the position of the image in the stamp. The image URL can be explicit if you're looking for a specific image, or can include a macro. Here again is the stamp file for our YTD chart stamp, this time showing the section of code that defines our image. Note that the code for images is usually located at the end of the file. The image URL points to image info-circle.png in our images folder. Here we've defined the position of the image, and here we've specified a click action that launches the Measure Info window. Lastly, we'll look at the chart component. The chart component allows you to display a chart within a stamp and offers the greatest number of options of any component type. Right now, you can create line, column, bar, donut, pie, combination, sparkline, and spark column charts, and many more. In the code block for a chart, you specify the chart type, the position of the chart in the stamp, and the size of the chart. In addition, each chart type has a variety of different attributes and properties that you can apply. Some examples of the types of properties you can apply are line styles and point styles for line graphs, the format of the values on the axes, whether or not you want to show the legend, and if you do, the size of the legend, the number of items shown on the chart, how null values are displayed, whether or not you can sort and filter the data, the minimum and maximum values on the scale, and much more. Not every attribute will work for every chart type, but the online help will walk you through what's available for each chart type. This stamp is called the 24-month trend stamp, and here's the section of the stamp file where the chart component is defined. For chart type, we've specified line. Here we've specified the position and size of the chart. We don't want to tie the chart to 0, so we've set Always Include 0 to false. We also don't want the legend to be visible, so we've set legend visible to false. The dimension we're using is date, and we want to show data for a rolling 12-month period by month. Here we've set the point style to circle for the data in the current period and the data in the previous period, which means we'll see circles on each line at each data point. We've also defined the colors for each of the two lines and set a click action for the chart component. So to summarize, the four most commonly used component types for stamps are text, indicator, image, and chart. Each component and attribute has its own options and requirements. We encourage you to consult the online help for more information.
Wow, was I ever confused about stamps? That is the last time I listened to Sam the Cat about anything. If you liked this video and found it as informative as I did, click on the like button and hit subscribe for more just like it. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.